Anyone else here like to read fanfiction and cry? Hey guys, it's Emily. I'm back. I wanted to film this earlier, but there's like 3 other people in my house and none of them are people I want to hear me talking about gay fanfiction, so this is kind of late, I'm sorry, but I have like 140 something subs now, which is literally insane to me. Like, thank you so much for subscribing. I didn't think anyone would be invested enough in me to actually subscribe, much less 140 something people. So as you may or may not know, I'm a huge fanfiction advocate. I think fanfiction is hated on way too much. I read it almost every night, like right before I sleep. Just like, instead of a book, I just read fanfiction. It's just comforting, you know, it's comforting. So I know a lot of people like maybe don't read it or are kind of wary of it. So I thought I would give 3 fanfiction recommendations that you can read without like any context, without having consumed whatever media it's from whatsoever, just as like kind of a beginner's guide to fanfiction. Let's just get started. Okay, so I have 3 fanfictions for you today. They do differ slightly in how much I would recommend them to someone who has never read fanfiction before. So the first fanfiction I'm gonna recommend, I was a little bit on the edge for including this. It's called Twist and Shout by Gabriel and Stand By Me. If you've been reading fanfiction for a long time, you probably know this fanfiction. It was one of the most popular ones since like around 2014, and only recently has it been kind of going down in popularity. The reason why I recommend this fic is exactly because of that. If you're interested in fanfiction and you're interested to know like what the most popular ones are, this is definitely one of them. Like, if you go on Archive of Our Own, which is the website that I read fanfiction on, if you go on that website and you sort by kudos, which is basically like likes, it will be one of the most kudoed fics. So it's kind of like a history lesson in fanfiction, if you will. I will say the reason why I was hesitant about including it is because it's a supernatural fanfiction, and I know people feel very differently about supernatural fanfiction. Specifically, the ship is Dean, Winchester, and Castiel. Let me just start off by saying I wasn't a supernatural fan. Like, I was more into like Doctor Who, kind of Sherlock. Sorry, that's so cringy to me because like super Sherlock. But yeah, I wasn't the biggest supernatural fan, but I myself read this fic out of curiosity because it had so much hype on the internet. Like, people were talking about it left and right on Tumblr. So I was like, alright, let me check it out. And let me tell you, that shit was devastating. So the basic plot of the fanfiction, it's very similar to Forrest Gump actually. I don't know if they drew inspiration from that movie, but the plot is pretty similar. So basically, Dean and Cass, they're dating in the beginning. And then I think Dean, he goes off to fight in a war, and then when he comes back he has a lot of PTSD. So it's kind of about like their struggles with the relationship. Skip this part if you don't want spoilers. I'm basically gonna summarize the whole plot to see if you're interested. So basically, after he comes back, he can't deal with his PTSD, so they break up and they separate, and they don't see each other for a really long time until, oh my god, I'm literally gonna cry talking about it. The trauma. They separate, but it turns out that Cass, he gets AIDS, I think, and he is obviously hospitalized, and like Dean is informed and he goes to the hospital and basically like sees Cass off because he doesn't get cured or anything. Like, he dies in the end. So don't read if you don't like major character death. It's so fucking sad. Like, as someone who wasn't even invested in supernatural, like sometimes I just think about that fic and I like cry. It was incredibly well written, at least from what I remember. Keep in mind that I was like 15 at the time and I haven't reread it because it's so sad, but the story really stuck with me this whole time. I mean, it was like a very nuanced take on like a love story. The relationship characterization is really good. Yeah, overall it's just so good. I feel like if you're one of those people who therapeutic cries, I think you might be into it. The word count is around 97k, so it's kind of a lot, I'm not going to lie, but I think it's worth it. It's like reading a book, and honestly, I think the emotional impact it had on me, at least, makes it better in my eyes than a lot of published books I've read. Like, what published book has you crying like that? Literally none. One warning I will give, besides the major character death, is it is explicit, so there are sex scenes. I personally skip past those because I don't like reading those. You can read them if you want, you can skip past them like me. I kind of skim them because, like, you know, sometimes in sex scenes there's like love confessions or like whatever, so I kind of skimmed it for that just in case they talked about anything important. And I would recommend you doing that if you're not into those sexy times. If that's like not your thing, then I would say don't read this fic. But I think it's worth it, and it's like definitely a historic fic in my eyes, so that's my first recommendation. The next fic I have to recommend it's a series. It's called Not Easily Conquered, and it's by Drop Dead Dream and What Are Fears. It's a Captain America fanfiction, and I'm not sure what it would be like to read this fic with no context, because when I read it, I was already part of the fandom. Basically, it tells a story of what would have happened if Steve didn't go under the ice, and like he lived a life with Peggy and then was still alive in modern day. It kind of goes into Bucky's story, how Steve felt all those years. In the first fic in the series, it covers all those years that Bucky was gone. I think it comes out that Bucky wrote 13 letters, question mark, to Steve during the war, and then I'm pretty sure the second fic is like those letters, like what was in those letters, and then the third fic is like modern day when Bucky is on trial for being the Winter Soldier. That's like the gist of it. The reason why I love this fic so much, like so much, it has such a special place in my heart, is because first of all, the writing's phenomenal. Second of all, the way they handle the relationship between Steve, Peggy, and Bucky is so nuanced. The one thing that always didn't sit right with me in the MCU was how it was always an all or nothing with either Steve and Peggy or Steve and Bucky. And I think the fic handles that situation like so well. Basically, in the first series, when Bucky is the Winter Soldier, it shows Steve being very loving to Peggy, and then when the news comes out that Bucky's still alive, it's not just like, oh, I hate you. It's like, I love you, but I love him in a different way, and I'll always love you both, but like I need to find him because he's also like my best friend. I just really like that because I liked how it didn't like throw Peggy to the side. Like, Peggy is her own very strong, very admirable character. Each character is driven by their own like emotions and desires, and they have their own goals. It's a very well thought out plot. There's like made up excerpts of like history textbooks and like the letters, obviously. Like, there's this whole world constructed, and it's really like a real series. I think about it all the time. Oh my god, there's this one quote from it that's like, I won't be in the history books, that's for you, but I loved you first. As long as they get that right, I don't care what they say. And I fucking think about that quote all the time. There's like some other quotes that just like live rent-free in my brain. Yeah, I literally can't emphasize how good this fic is. Like, it's so fucking good. The one caveat I think is like, if you're not into the MCU, you might be like, what the hell is going on? I mean, you can try reading it without context. I just personally haven't read it without context, so I don't know like how hard it is to understand if you don't know shit about the Captain America series. So that's the second fic I have to recommend. Last but not least, no words. Okay, let me calm down because I'm so excited about this fic. The last fic I have to recommend is called World Ain't Ready. It is by user Idiopathic Smile on AO3. User Idiopathic Smile literally fucking changed my life with this fic. Like, that probably sounds dramatic, but I'm not kidding. Some background. Like 2 years ago maybe, my friend group on Twitter was like, you guys should read this fic. It's called World Ain't Ready, and it's a Les Mis fic. And I was like, why the fuck would I read a Les Mis fic? Because I haven't read Les Mis, I haven't watched Les Mis, I didn't even know what the characters' names were before I read this fic. So I was like, why the hell would I read this? And they were like, you know what, just try it, you don't need any context. So I went in absolutely no context, and it was so good, like so good. Like, if you asked me what my favorite book was, that might be my favorite book ever. Let me summarize it. So basically, World Ain't Ready is about this guy named Grantaire and this guy named Enjolras. They're characters from Les Mis, but I'm pretty sure they're side characters. It's set in high school in the late 2000s or maybe early 2010s, and basically Grantaire is this like stoner. He's like doesn't care in school, and he's in detention one day, and this kid comes in named Enjolras, and he basically got detention for starting an argument about why there weren't gender neutral bathrooms in the school. And this kid Enjolras founds this club. It's basically a social justice club, and Grantaire joins because he has a massive crush on this guy. So they have two friends who are like side characters. Basically those two friends like each other, but they're both guys. They were concerned about their friends being the first openly gay couple in the school because, you know, it's like the 2000s, everyone's homophobic. So they're like, what if we fake dated and like paved the way for gay couples? So basically they're like fake dating, but they're both secretly in love with each other this whole time, as it is in fan fiction. I feel like it sounds kind of boring when I say it like that, but let me tell you, like, it's the characters, even the side characters, like the sidest of side characters, leave an impression on you. They're so well written. Like, every character has their own distinct personality, their own like relationships with the other characters, their own like goals and motivations. They feel like real, like fleshed out people. The interactions between the characters are so precious. They're like so good. They make you laugh, they make you like sad, they make you happy. Seriously, the writing, let's talk about the writing. User Idiopathic Smile is a fucking genius, like a writing genius. The fic is so funny. Like, I feel like the tone is what YA novels like try to achieve, but like come off cringy doing. Like, the jokes are still funny in 2020. They're like, it's just like effortlessly funny. The character interactions, scenes, like everything feels so natural. I don't know, like I just love their writing. I feel like it's quirky without being cringy. It's like lighthearted when it needs to be, but also like serious when it needs to be. But it doesn't like take itself too seriously, if you know what I mean. It's just like an incredibly easy read. Like, the prose isn't like overly flowery. Like, it's not blunt, but it's like, it's very straightforward. It doesn't take like 100 of my brain cells to read it. That might be an insult, I'm not sure. I mean it as a compliment. Like, it doesn't drag at all. This fic is literally the length of Jane Eyre, but it took me 2 weeks to read 1/4 of Jane Eyre and 2 days to read this fanfiction. So it's just so addictive. Like, I was obsessed with it. I like breezed through it so quickly, and I reread it every couple of months. Like, I love the characters so much. I love the plot. It's so funny, but there's also, it's so dramatic at points. The relationship is just so cute that like you wish you had it. There are some scenes that just make you want to launch yourself out the window because of how fucking idiotic they are. Like, just fucking kiss already. But I think that just adds to the plot. I don't know what to say. It's just like, I can't even put into words how good it is. Like, please, if you read anything out of these three, please read this one. I'm gonna stop rambling now. Just like, please, I'm begging you to read this. If you happen to read any of these, please like comment your thoughts on them. I do have more recommendations, but they're more like niche, I would say. Yeah, I don't know. If any of you are interested, I could do more recommendations in the future. That's basically it. Please subscribe if you wish to. Goodbye.